Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you to episode number 77 of the Primetime Rundown right here on the Eastern Observer. Alongside my guys Ian Schraier and Rob DeLuca, and Mike Szabo is somewhere. I don't know where he just went. I'm Joey Jarzynka. Cannot thank you all enough for joining us here on this Friday evening, episode number 77. And this entire podcast is presented to you by Black Cats NYC. Be sure to download their newest hit song, Run, Rudolph, Run. It is available for download anywhere on every single music platform that you can download music. Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube Music, or wherever you can download their other album, Free Cake, Deezer, SoundCloud, YouTube Music, Pandora, and, of course, Spotify. Rob DeLuca, good to see you, sir. How are things on your side of the river?
You know, it's been when you're off for 3 weeks, you don't know what to do with yourself. So, I haven't really done a whole lot of things here. You take care of one thing, then another thing pops up. But you know what? You just have to deal with it. That's life, and that's the way we run things. And of course, we are back in 2022, ready to move forward. And of course, Joey, as always, don't we have a great show?
Oh, listen, we have a phenomenal show upcoming, and we will get back to you to preview it in a few moments. Ian Schraier, Happy New Year, sir. Good to see you. It feels like it's been forever since I have seen you, and you look quite handsome there. I see you got a little haircut there, clean shaven.
Yeah.
Look at you.
Look, I got a nice, somewhat fresh, clean shave, about 2 days old. Usually this thing grows out after about maybe 3 days, so I give myself another day. I'm not at Mike Szabo status yet, but we'll get there. But I just want to wish all of our viewers, everybody out there, of course, Mike, Rob, and Joey, and the Johns waiting backstage, just everybody a very happy New Year. Welcome to 2022. Quentin Nelson is still not a New York Giant, but I'll learn to live. But we're just so happy to be back here on this first show of the year 2022.
Mike Szabo, good to see you, sir, because the last time I got to see you was in a picture that looked so great here. Look at this. We have to really analyze this photo here. Mike Szabo with his hand out. He's ready to go with his broadcast partner at Adelphi University. The mask is not on correctly, but it looks phenomenal.
Who cares?
Mike, good to see you, man. How are things with you?
Going pretty well. I mean, this week it's a lot better. Good start to the year because, of course, Christmas, the old crappy thing called COVID hit this house, so that was a bummer. But gotten all through it. Everybody's okay now, and now we're off to 2022. And of course, actually, that broadcast last night for Adelphi was like my first time out in 2 weeks. So there we go.
Unbelievable. I hope Ian Schraier stayed far away from you. Oh my goodness. Well, Rob,
now that I'm learning that, not far enough.
Rob DeLuca, we have a phenomenal show on tap, and of course we do have just a pair of guests in our in another crossover edition of the Primetime Rundown and the Essential Wrestling Podcast. We've got John DeConnie and John Smith waiting backstage for us. What else do we have on tap here tonight?
Well, Joey, that just you mentioned, we got the two Johns from the Essential Wrestling Podcast. We got to talk some NFL. It's week 18. The regular season's coming to an end. There's a few playoff pushes still to be solved, but there's another push to be solved, and that is who will win the title of Sole Survivor Champion in our pool. It is down to Ian Schraier and John DeConnie. Who's going to win? They're tied in record right now. It might end in a tie, and then, Joey, what do we do about that?
That's actually still to be determined, and that is a pretty bad job from commissioner. And, it's very funny because from my entire life as commissioner of any football leagues or whatever the case may be, I've always been told you've been the worst. And it's very evident that streak continues heading into the playoffs and week 18 here in the Primetime Rundown and Essential Wrestling Podcast Survivor Pool. But with that being said, we also have, of course, Antonio Brown walking off the field. We've got a full video of that. We also have analysis there. We'll be making our picks as well as Jacksonville Jaguars fans. They're going to be dressing up as clowns. We will get more into that later on as well. Of course, the New York Rangers are absolutely buzzing, and we will also be welcoming our good friend from College Hoops Digest, Jake Zimmer. We will be previewing the Providence and St. John's contest, which, of course, we are extremely blessed that the Eastern Observer will be on site for that one, as well as the UConn matchup on Wednesday, January 12th. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let us please welcome John DeConnie and John Smith to the show. Fellas, good to see the two of you. How are things on your side of the river towards where DeLuca is?
It's a lovely day here in Jersey. A little chilly, but we're doing all right.
Yeah, I'm in a depressed, secluded state right now because of what happened to me in fantasy football this weekend.
Oh, man.
I ran into Jamar Chase in 2 different championship games.
Oh,
Ouch.
Yeah.
oh boy, that is really tough. But good to see the two of you. Cannot thank you both enough for joining us here on episode number 77. Let's get right to it, guys. Week number 17, a full recap. Of course, we'll get to our picks later on, but it was a pretty good week of football, and there were some good games as well, and one of which I want to start off with being John Smith's New York Jets. They almost pulled it out against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers until the 2-minute drill kicked in for Tom Brady and eventually moved his personal best record 30-6 against the New York Jets. John Smith, I got to start off with you here just for the heck of it. What did you get to see there with your New York Jets? Was it typical Jets? Did they really have something against this Tampa Bay Bucs team? Are the Bucs as good as advertised on the road? Your thoughts?
You know, first off, you'd be hard pressed to find a team that's beaten Tom Brady more than 6 times. All right, don't matter that we were in the same division as him for the past 15, 20 years. But this is just same old Jets. We were up 24-10. I was, in the middle of doing some business with a friend of mine, so I didn't get to watch the whole game. I get in the car, we're up 24-10, and it was the middle of Antonio Brown's little meltdown when I turned the game on in the car. And I was like, there's no way we're winning this game still. There's no way. I'll believe it when I see it. And obviously, that's what happened.
I find it absolutely surreal to see not only what happened with Antonio Brown, we'll get to that in a few moments, but the crazy part also is that Ian Schraier, what you got to see with that Tampa Bay Bucs team, are they as good as advertised on the road? Because they continuously have these lapses where they're down 14 points, where they're down 17 points, and sometimes they can't even get the W.
Well, this is just a down year for the NFL as a whole. I mean, can't remember a year. I mean, I guess if you want to say there's one team that's surging into the playoffs, it's got to be Kansas City just based on their winning streak. But this has got to be one of the most wide open years for the NFL where if you look at Kansas City, Green Bay, I mean, Tampa Bay's not running away with anything. The Rams aren't running away with anything. I mean, a couple of teams that we thought were going to be real key contenders for a Super Bowl coming into this season have displayed a lot of flaws coming into the year. So I'm not so I'm not sold on Tampa Bay. I don't know if it's one piece, and I don't think Antonio Brown is the end all be all because they have number 12 under center. But I think when it comes to the game itself on Sunday between the Jets and the Bucs, I mean, is there anyone who thought that with Tom Brady getting the ball back with a minute left in the fourth quarter and no timeouts, that he wasn't going to execute some sort of outstanding last-minute drive to score a game-winning touchdown? I don't care how much time you give Brady. Give him 8 seconds. He'll find a way to tie the game or give your team or win it. I think the play that it came down to, the Jets were up 24-10. It looked like that this was going to be it, that the Jets were coming off a great performance the week before, and you felt that Zach Wilson is really starting to develop these last couple of weeks. The Jets offense is starting to click a little more. But that play call, I mean, what was it, 4th and 1 and 4th and 2, and running the quarterback sneak as they did with Zach. So I think if anything, I mean, sure, we know what Tom Brady can do with a football in the 2-minute drill, but that was the play that really just struck a chord for New York Jets fans, just to see that being, even with no Robert Saleh there, that was the play that I'm sure struck a chord with Jet fans more than Brady leading the downfield assault that won the Buccaneers the game.
It's really wild to see what happened there. And I remember when DeLuca was actually texting us in a group message and he said, "Oh my goodness, the Bucs, it's not going to be good for our survivor pool," because both myself and Mike Zabo had taken the Tampa Bay Bucs, but at that last second, you could never count out Tom Brady in a quick 2-minute drill. And this is something that was not really on our rundown either, but I still have to just nag anyway, even though the Giants still own the Chicago Bears' pick anyway. John DeConi, I see you are donning a gorgeous Chicago Bears uniform, and the best part is that was not even a romping, and we have 3 Giants fans here. Talk about what you got to see there with the Bears. Was it even a game? It looked like a JV football game.
Well, it was. The Bears were up 14-0 in the blink of an eye. There was an interception, there was a fumble, and it was 14-0 really quick. And truth be told, I grew up in New Jersey. I grew up in a Giants household, so it's always bittersweet for me when it's Bears-Giants. And I have some childhood trauma connected to the 1986 playoffs when, young John was just, he found out a couple of years before that in a random conversation, blah, 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 you were born during a big blizzard in Chicago. And I was like, wait a minute, I was born in Chicago? All I knew was Jersey my whole life. Maybe 7 years old when this came up. And so it was at that point that I was like, all right, I still like the Giants, but I'm a Bears fan now. I was born in Chicago. And fast forward a few years to that 86 playoff game when Sean Landeta whiffed on that punt in Soldier Field on a windy day. I jumped up, screamed, yeah! And my father threw me out of the room. Like, get out! Get out! So I watched the rest of the game on a little 19-inch black and white TV in my room. So it's always a little tough for me when the Bears play the Giants because I'm never rooting for the Bears to beat up on the Giants. And at the point that it was 14-0, having watched the Bears all year, I said to myself, this game's going to end 15-14 with the Bears losing. But God love them, the Giants they just didn't have any offense in them. The Bears defense played pretty well because except for Khalil Mack, just about everyone was healthy. And when they're all healthy, that is a good unit. The Giants were never in it, and it just didn't look like they wanted to be anywhere but in that stadium that day.
Yeah, it's I mean, I know I can't even go to Rob DeLuca because he'll just start throwing or simply just click X and just leave us for sure because of the salt that he's got because of that loss.
Please, this season's over.
Well, we knew that.
We knew that a long
I was
time
going to say
ago.
we knew that for a long.
We've known that since like September, mid-September, maybe.
Unbelievable stuff. But you know what the crazy part is that there were a few other games, Mike Szabo, that we got a chance to see, one of which that I pointed out here, and I think we're going to get to everyone here talking about a full recap and what you guys all liked. But Mike, the one that really stuck out to me was Cincinnati and Kansas City. Please tell me a reason why Zach Taylor, the head coach of the Bengals, should not be named Coach of the Year.
There isn't. I don't know why he's not more in the conversation. I mean, this was a Bengals team he expected to take a step up, but I don't think anybody expected this much of a step up. That, they're right there in the thick of the playoffs. Jamar Chase is an absolute star. Joe Burrow is ascending. Many put him in the top 5 of NFL quarterbacks this year. He's really took a huge step up this year, coming back from an injury. I don't know why Zach Taylor wouldn't be in the Coach of the Year conversation. He's done a phenomenal job this year coaching the Bengals and winning some big games that many thought they weren't.
Yeah, well, Cliff Kingsbury was supposed to be the automatic Coach of the Year when they went 10-2, and then all of a sudden now they're 11-5, and now Bill Belichick is obviously in that conversation, and you have a few others as well, but. I mean, the big one to me, and obviously you're not going to get it, even though that they are only 8-8 and they've got 4 or 5 straight losses by a combined, I think it's like 10 points of the Baltimore Ravens. This team is so decimated, and they still have a 500 record right now heading into Week 18, which the first time ever, of course, we're going to see a Week 18. And with the amount of injuries that the Baltimore Ravens have sustained, Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, Marcus Peters, the list goes all the way on, Derek Wolfe, and you still have 8 wins, Lamar Jackson, of course. Kudos to John Harbaugh for really doing a good job this entire year. And, they lost 20-19 to the Los Angeles Rams. It's really tough to just continuously see these 1 or 2 point losses every single week. And that's the way it almost feels like too. Moving ahead, if you will, to just a full recap of Week 17. DeLuca, I got to ask you, what was the game that really stuck out to you in Week 17?
Well, I try to be different when you bring other games up, but it's hard not to say Kansas City, Cincinnati. I mean, what a game. I mean, I mean, from start to finish, it seemed like the Chiefs had it, and then Joe Burrow would crawl the Bengals right back into it. And sure enough, I mean, look, Chiefs fans will argue the referees may have helped out Cincinnati at the end there. There were calls coming in that you just couldn't quite understand how they were being made, but they were getting made anyway. I mean, I guess that's what happens when you're in Cincinnati. I didn't know Cincinnati was the kind of team that gets calls even when they're at home. But it's I thought that was a great game to finish on, and then another game. I guess if you want to look at it in terms of the scoreboard, I guess you could say Cardinals-Cowboys was another great game. I think it looked like the Cardinals had that game locked up early on, and then Dak Prescott was chipping away at that game, and then just ran out of time. So the Cardinals came away with a 25-22 victory, which kept the Cardinals in the NFC West Division race. And now it comes down to Week 18. The Cardinals will be playing the Seahawks at home, so they have to win that game, and then the Rams have to lose to the 49ers to win the NFC West. And a San Francisco win would in turn clinch a playoff spot for them. So this could be a very fun week.
Yeah, and I know Ian was about to say also, it just shows how wild the NFL is this entire season too, where you've got teams that are beating up on each other, and really there's no team aside from the Green Bay Packers there right now, I think at 13-3 or 14-3 or something along those lines, 13-3, right, exactly. So with a record like that, there's no other team out there that has something like that. Everyone's just beating up on each other. Really crazy stuff.
And if I can add to your point, Joey, on Zach Taylor, Evan Winter, we've had on, who's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers beat writer that we just have the pleasure of having on a couple times a year here with us, especially when we're in season, had mentioned about how should there be a coach in the NFL that should get more attention for NFL Coach of the Year than Mike Vrabel. And granted, you want to talk about a team like the Baltimore Ravens that's been decimated by injury, especially with the loss of Derrick Henry, the fact that Ryan Tannehill hasn't had a very underwhelming season, the fact that Julio Jones has been almost invisible, and the Tennessee Titans have locked up the AFC South is definitely an impressive accomplishment. But to completely ignore the fact that no one, I mean, listen, I feel like we could poll all six of us, and I don't think any of us had the Cincinnati Bengals winning the AFC North. For Joe Burrow, who was coming off just such a gruesome injury last year, the fact that the Bengals got toasted by everybody in the NFL for drafting a wide receiver in the first round when they just needed so much offensive line help, and they were like, Jamar Chase should not be the pick for the Bengals. And look what he's done for that franchise. I mean, what was it, 235 yards on Sunday against the Chiefs, 3 touchdowns. It's got to give credit where credit's due. And Zach Taylor, first-year head coach, has the Bengals in the playoffs, winning the AFC North. So I think that's where Coach of the Year should go, bar none. I'm not trying to sit here and discount Vrabel or discount any other coach in the NFL. I just think Taylor had the most. Came in with nothing to prove and ended up having the most to prove. So really, I think it should go to him over anybody else.
And especially when you look at a team like the Cleveland Browns, who were projected to win the AFC North this year. Let's be honest, people. Believeland is no longer believing in over there. It's not good. And maybe they'll come back next year. But right now, this could potentially be maybe next year one of the best divisions in all of football. Anyone may agree with me or may not agree with me, but now I'm going to turn it over to the Essential Wrestling Podcast duo that we have on here tonight. And guys, I got to ask you, for you to see this week 17, aside from the games that we've spoken about, is there any other games that really stuck out to the two of you? John Smith, you can take it first, of course.
For me, it's the Raiders. Because and I also like this Rich Bisaccia as a potential Coach of the Year candidate, because he stepped in some real bleep when he ended up in the position he's in, between the Ruggs thing and obviously the Gruden thing. For them to go out and beat the Colts and be one win away from making the playoffs, all they have to do is beat the Chargers this Sunday night, and they're like I was never a Raiders guy. They're like the perpetual heels, the perpetual villains in football. But this year you can't help but root for them.
How did you guys see? Did you guys see? And I'm asking all you guys this. Did you guys see there was a tweet that was put out there about a really weird stat, or rather a scenario. If the Colts lose to the Jaguars and the Raiders and the Chargers tie, both of those teams will make it into the playoffs, and the Colts will be left out. Imagine that, John DeConnie.
Yeah, well, that was the talk on Tuesday on a bunch of the show, the football shows. Was could you see a scenario where the coaches get together ahead of time and decide to just kneel on the ball for 60 minutes? Well, of course not. There'd be a riot in the stadium, so of course that's not going to happen. But you could see a scenario where the score's 21-14, the trailing team goes down at the end, and they score that touchdown. We've started to see this trend of coaches going for two to take that definite win or take it on the chin and take the loss. I think in that scenario, you're definitely kicking that extra point to go to overtime because a loss and you're out, a win and you're in, but a tie you're also in. So maybe you're not quite as aggressive towards the end. That's an excellent, 272 they're calling that that last game of the season. We should get a really fun wrap up to this season with that being the last game on week 18.
Yeah, and it's very funny because I know Rob DeLuca was very, very critical about the games that were picked on Saturday, especially the Dallas Cowboys and Philadelphia Eagles game. He was definitely a little. He wasn't too happy about that. DeLuca,
I worked there. It's a pointless pick. It's all about ratings. There's no excitement in that game.
Please preach. Come on. Go ahead.
What is Joey going to do with himself if Carson Wentz missed the playoffs?
Well,
I think he'll celebrate because he'll have a better draft pick. Then he'll cry because Carson Wentz doesn't play.
Well, it's very funny because there was actually another tweet that I got to see today, and it was if Jalen Hurts completes a short pass, literally one pass for 5 yards, he has more yards in a game than Carson Wentz in a playoff game than Carson Wentz does in his 5-year career total.
Well, that's because Nick Foles started in the playoffs, right?
Nick Foles.
Hold on. Listen,
give Wentz a little credit.
Listen. Chicago
Ian, that's
Bears
future
legend.
Giants legend. Nick Foles.
Chicago Bears legend, Nick Foles, okay? We got a chance to see him 2 weeks ago, just completely shine, do what he does. We remember back a couple of years ago when Carson Wentz went down, Jadeveon Clowney, that was a dirty hit that I'll be biased and say that it was 100% a dirty hit. Others may disagree with me, but that's okay. And then Nick Foles came in. What a shock. And then that was pretty much the end of Carson Wentz's career. But that would be something else if Carson Wentz does not make the playoffs and a tie does happen or something even happen. Listen, if they lose to the Jaguars, they've got a big problem up in Indianapolis. But Jonathan Taylor, my eventual MVP. There's no doubt about it. Guys, let's keep on moving forward here. Let's get to our week 18, or rather, let's keep moving on here. With Antonio Brown. That's something else, too. We were just talking about early on, and we actually have a video here, courtesy of Millionaire Mutts, some guy off of YouTube. We downloaded the clip from, and it's some player named Antonio Brown just decides to take off his uniform on the sideline and look like a spectator running and potentially streaking on the field. Take a peek. So it's things like this that, make the stadium workers think. So, it might just be a crazy fan running out onto the field and, whatever the case may be. But no, that is none other than
You got
wide
the first
receiver.
part right, Joey. You got the first part right and the crazy part.
That is true. Yeah, that is true. But then, of course, today we got a chance to see his side as well as general manager Jason Light's side as well of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And there was some crazy stuff here that potentially could put Tampa Bay in hot water as well. They might have forced the issue where, he maybe should not have played. He thinks that there was Antonio Brown thinks maybe that there was some miscommunication there between Bruce Arians, between himself, between his trainer that apparently Tom Brady recommended as well. There was some money sent to him. A lot of crazy stuff going on, guys. JD, I got to start with you here. What did you think when you saw this? Even though we already spoke with John Smith about this. What were your thoughts when you saw this craziness?
I can tell you that the first line in my notes under the AB topic just says clown shoes. This guy, he's just, look, if he's mentally ill and he really needs help, it's 2022, so we all have to preface our words by saying we hope he gets the help he needs. But there is a chance he's just an a-hole. And, I mean, if you listen to Bruce Arians, this is a guy who he practiced, he went through the walkthrough. So, yes, we know he's had an ankle injury since October, but he went through the walkthrough. He played the first half. He was complaining in the locker room about not getting enough catches because he had a couple of different incentives to reach in his contract. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of the third quarter, Bruce Arians calls in his player package, and he just goes, "No, I'm not getting the ball. I'm not going on the field." And his ankle, his claim, Antonio Brown, is that it was an ankle injury. He told them, okay, well, the coaching staff and the training staff report that he didn't come up to them at any point in time to seek extra care, didn't tell them anything was wrong at halftime. The only thing he did was complain about not getting enough targets. And then he, crow hopped into that throw of his T-shirt into the stands, and he's doing jumping jacks across the end zone as he's leaving the field. Ankle looked pretty healthy to me. It could just be that he's a dick.
Yeah. It's the truth. I mean, listen, anyone else want to take that over? I mean, I don't know how you can top that.
Sure. I mean, look, John has a lot of good points here. There is with Antonio Brown's past, I guess we'll call it, that his credibility is kind of low. It's hard. His believability, his credibility
is shot.
It's shot. So, the believability of this has to be 50-50. I mean, it could be true. It might not be true. I mean, look, his side of the story seems really difficult to make up. But at the same time, this is Antonio Brown. So I don't know. I don't know who's right here. I don't know who's in the wrong and the right. I don't know who's nuts, who's not, who's the jerk, who's the victim. It's a sticky situation. We're gonna need more facts. That's all there is to it, really.
Well, today we got a chance to see some text messages as well, and that he flat out basically he screenshotted them, he posted them
right if those are real, right,
on his Instagram. Well, I mean, see, that's the thing. Does he have the time, or does he have a team that could Photoshop these text messages? I don't think so, Ian Schraier.
I could do it for you.
First and foremost, so when you watch that video, I love how long it took AB to actually get his pads off. I feel like that there was a good 10 count there. Two, the memes so far have been fantastic. Going from Mike Tomlin, how he was able to last however many years with Antonio Brown should be celebrated as a hero, to Antonio Brown being photoshopped as a Jets flight crew cheerleader has been a really, really good one. They've been fantastic. But going to DeLuca's point, his credibility is shot. I mean, you want to go back to when he was complaining about the helmets with the Raiders, or the fact that even the savior himself, who finds a way to revamp everyone's career, Bill Belichick, was done with him after 2 games, or, you could point to a whole bunch of different situations. I'm not ready to – just like DeLuca said, I need more facts as well. I'm not necessarily ready. I'm kind of on your side, Joe, with regards to the text messaging. I don't think that was Photoshopped. I think that I think there is probably a little validity to it, but it's hard to believe it. It's hard to believe it. But what I think is it outs and is as selfish a player and as much of a prima donna as Antonio Brown is, I think it outs Bruce Arians a little bit. We know how much of a competitor Bruce Arians is. We know what the situation was at that moment. Antonio left, they were down 2 touchdowns. Maybe it's a different situation if the score is reversed. If it's 24-10 Tampa instead of 24-10 Jets, maybe Brown's not leaving the field because he's not seeing the ball enough. But I think it's going to leave things open for interpretation, and I think it's going to shine a spotlight a little bit. And I'm sure Antonio Brown meant to do it that way on Bruce Arians himself too.
Anybody want to counter Ian's thought about the, he needs more facts, or do we agree with John DeConnie? I take JD's side. I truly believe that, after seeing certain things and after him being able and after hearing some of the things that he has said, maybe he does have a little bit of mental illness, or dare we say CTE. Again, we don't want to speculate, but there are signs, and this is one of them. Regardless of what you hear, you don't hear, this is one that we have seen over and over and over again, and things do not end well. Anybody want to take the opposite side of Ian?
Yeah, I totally agree on the opposite side of things. I think frankly, Antonio Brown's done in the NFL. I think his former teammate, Ryan Clark, making the rounds on ESPN this week, said it perfectly, in that he's shown to be an inconsistent human was the quote that he made. And I think that was a perfect way to sum it up. And he also went on to say that it was he said it perfectly. He said that, this was the first time Antonio Brown really quit on himself. He's quit on his teammates before. He's made a lot of stupid things he's done in his career. It's a laundry list of silly incidents that he's had, but it's the first time he really quit on himself. I mean, if he played out this week, played out this regular season, he probably would have hit all those performance bonuses that he could have had. I mean, you just lost yourself $1 million. Mental illness or not, I think this guy just needs somebody in his life to just put an arm around his shoulder and guide him or something. Mental illness or not, somebody needs to help him, because it's a bad point of where his life is going toward. He's just all over the place.
Maybe that Uber driver, Mike, that he was waiting for outside MetLife Stadium after the game couldn't guide him.
Goodness gracious! And then or somebody at the next game. Maybe you could get Kevin Durant to help him. It's just crazy. Some of the stuff that he does. That's just the only thing you could sum it up with. But I think at this point, I think he had his last shot with Tampa. I kind of feel bad for Tom Brady, who really stuck his neck out for this guy between New England and Tampa Bay, to bring this guy in, say, don't worry, I'll take care of him. We'll get him right. And you do all of that. I mean, he's a Hall of Fame talent, but that's never, the talent's never been the issue, of course. But, I feel bad. Tom Brady stuck his neck out for him, and, this is how you repay him. You burned him, even though, especially after he was so clutch during the playoffs and getting Tampa Bay a Super Bowl last year. And then now it's, basically come to this. This was his last shot. You had the incident earlier in the season, too, with the fake vaccine situation, the fake vaccine card and everything, and that whole situation. Now you have this. He's blown all his chances. He's had, not even this is a second or third chance. I mean, it's like so many chances he's had. He's blown it all. I think this is his last game we've ever seen him in the NFL, and it's kind of sad.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. John Smith, you want to finalize this topic here with AB?
All I'll say is that ever since he got hit by Vontaze Burfict 5 years ago, everything's been different with him. Yeah. And, you can't really not point a little bit at CTE or whatever you want to say, just concussion stuff in general. Maybe he doesn't have CTE, but, there's no way that his brain is the same as it was when he was in high school or whatever now. I think something might be deteriorating. Who knows? And no excuses. He's still a professional and needs to behave himself and accordingly. But let's not lose sight of the fact that he got knocked the F out in the middle of the field by like a 250-pound 2% body fat guy. Going at 4 or 5 speed. So we can't lose sight of that. I think, but no, I'm not on the AB bandwagon at all. But I just you got to look at both sides of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's, I think, where we'll leave it at that, especially because we don't know what he's dealing with. And he's definitely not that guy also, that we've seen with the Pittsburgh Steelers prior to that hit. Not the guy we saw on Dancing with the Stars many years ago. A whole bunch of other cameos that he was on. It's, these commercials too. We don't see him anywhere anymore for obvious reason. How about the cryotherapy issue in Oakland on Hard Knocks? That was their final year in Oakland. Yeah, we forget about that. Or that was their second to last year in Oakland. So really amazing stuff to see how far down this guy has gone. Unbelievable stuff. Fellas, let's keep on moving here. Week 18 is upon us, beginning in about 48 hours, since we are pre-recording on Thursday. So on Saturday night, as Rob DeLuca has alluded to us earlier, we do have 2 games on the docket. Rob DeLuca, let's hear those 2 games.
Well, to close out the season here, Week 18 on ABC and ESPN, a simulcast. It will be at 4:30. The Kansas City Chiefs visiting the Denver Broncos to close out some AFC West play. And then Saturday Night Football, 8:15, NFC East. One of the best divisions in football, obviously, is going to be the Dallas Cowboys, NFC East champions, visiting the wild card Philadelphia Eagles. Both teams are pretty much locked into their seeds, so it essentially means nothing.
Well, thank you, Rob DeLuca, for just adding some I think, what, like I said, what I think you need some fries with your salt.
Can I get some fries to go with that salt?
Yeah, you definitely need that. That's for sure. Guys, let's see Week 18. What really sticks out to the two of you, Johns? I'll start off with John DeConi here. We've got a great Week 18 set. You obviously brought up the Raiders and the Chargers. Is there a different game that you guys see, JD, that might stick out to you that could be watchable?
Well, I'm going to be interested to see the Rams and the Niners. It looks like Jimmy G's not going to go, but the Niners seem to own the Rams, and weird things always happen in that NFC West division. This is a game that if you just look at it on paper, if you're talking about Trey Lance going up against that Rams defense, this should be a massacre. But weird things happen in that division. The Niners seem to own the Rams. Would I be totally shocked if the Rams lay an egg here? Not in the least, especially not in this season where there just is not a single team that doesn't have a black eye on their schedule somewhere. So that's a game I'm definitely going to be watching, especially after Matt Stafford cost me 3 fantasy Super Bowls.
Oh my God. So first it's Jamar Chase with John Smith, and now it's Matthew Stafford with JD. That is brutal, fellas. Well, I mean, John Smith, is there is there a game that you see that could be another watchable one?
I think the Saints and Falcons is going to be a real interesting game because the Saints can sneak their way into the playoffs if the Rams end up beating the 49ers somehow. And I know Stafford, or would you say Jimmy G, isn't going to play, so that bodes well for the Saints. And I'm a real closet Taysom Hill fan myself. I would have loved to see the Jets nab him up or something and try to build an offense around him in the past few years, especially considering the alternatives that we've trudged out there onto the field. But yeah, I'm really rooting for Taysom Hill to back his way into the playoffs and make some noise, because I think that team can make noise if they do make the playoffs.
Okay. Well, you don't think Ian Book could really do it? No.
Definitely not.
Yeah, I don't know. All I could say, fellas, is that this is something that is, I think, the biggest game of the week that people are not really talking about. is Seattle and Arizona. We got a chance to talk about that earlier, and I'd love to hear my guys really either counter or even if they have another idea of another game. But Seattle and Arizona is massive, especially for Arizona. Why? Because it's at State Farm Stadium in Glendale. And the catch to all of this is that Kyler Murray, when he's on the road, now get this, their record is 6-1, 15 touchdowns, 3 picks, and a passer rating of 109.2. So then you would think that it would just be even better at home. Not the case. They're 3-3, 8 touchdowns, 7 picks, and a 92.7 passer rating. I mean, think about it. Right now, Seattle is in prime position to shake things up. If I'm not mistaken, Rob DeLuca, I believe you did tell me that Arizona either can move down or up, or are they locked in their seed?
The Arizona Cardinals can win the division still if the Los Angeles Rams are defeated.
So, with that being said, this game becomes even more massive when getting out of those 5, 6, 7 seeds and getting a home playoff game in week number 1. Guys, Ian Schraier, I gotta go to you here. Do you agree with that, or do you have another game in mind that throws everything else out the window?
Well, to your point about Seattle and Arizona, I mean, my concern with the Seahawks remains the same: is that their offensive line can't stop anybody. Credit to Russell Wilson and the athlete that he is, and the fact that DK Metcalf and him have really refound their chemistry a little bit these last few weeks. But the game I'm going to go with actually, and look, Arizona's been a top 10 defense all year, so I'm really expecting Russ to be kind of running for his life a little more than, I mean, granted he does it every week, but I expect him to be running quite a bit this weekend. The game that I'm going to say isn't really a highlight game, but I think it could actually be a sneaky game in terms of a team playing well of late against a team that's playing pretty inconsistent of late, and that's going to be the Bills and the Jets. The Bills have a chance to lock up the AFC East with a win, and everything tells you that the Bills at home in the snow, Week 18 must-win game. Josh Allen against the Jets, coming off a game when they played at MetLife Stadium where they just absolutely thrashed the Jets, tells you that the Bills should win going away and are going to win the division and probably host the Patriots. If the Bills lose to the Jets and the Patriots win against Miami, then New England surmounts Buffalo and ends up winning the AFC. So this game is such a huge game for Buffalo. Their offensive line has been in shambles all year. There are some games where they figure it out. There are some games when they don't. And I just think Zach Wilson, as I said before, is just starting to develop a little bit. And I think for him to come out there and for the Jets to try to play a little spoiler for Buffalo to take away that home game for the Bills Mafia, I think that game's going to be a lot more intriguing than I think we're giving it credit.
So, John Smith, I have to just throw this one in there. Do you agree at all, or do you think Ian's absolutely nuts saying that he wants to watch this Jets game?
I'm not even going to watch this Jets game.
Oh my! I learned from the last time that I was on, and I tried to make the case that the Patriots and Jets game was going to be watchable, and I just got bombarded by not only the cast around me, but the couple of comments that came in. What are you talking about? That game's going to be a blowout. You can't make a case for these Jets.
Oh my goodness!
Unless they were playing the Giants. but then we
to watch though.
We'd take them out by 14 probably though.
Probably.
That is very true.
Listen, the Giants would have a better draft pick as a result of that, so I'm on board.
Yeah.
Mike Zabo, what do you see on the Week 18 docket?
I really liked your pick with the Arizona and Seattle. That should be an interesting one. I will tell you, I will not be watching the Giants. That's for sure. I have not watched that god-awful team in a month. So I really like that game with Arizona and Seattle. I think it should be a game that Arizona should win easily, but you never know. Week 18, teams may want to play spoilers. Maybe you got a couple of guys you never hear of on both sides of the ball or trying to play for their jobs, playing with a little bit of extra hunger at the end of the year. So you never know, but even though Arizona should win that fairly handily, but should be an interesting game with a lot on the line in the NFC West. I think the NFC West and the AFC East are like two of the or some of the only divisions where there's still a lot on the line. So I think there's a lot of drama in all those games involving those divisions.
That's exactly why, Mike. That's exactly why my game to watch is New England versus Miami. I think that's a sneaky game to look out for too, because you can never doubt Miami in Miami. And New England has always seemed to struggle with Miami when they're down there in Florida. So you never know. The Patriots are trying to play for the division here, and there's some crazy scenario where the New England Patriots could actually lock up the number 1 seed. So obviously that would involve Tennessee and Kansas City losing as well as Buffalo. So it's a crazy scenario that probably doesn't happen. But nonetheless, the Patriots are very much playing for the AFC East. So if the New York Jets can pull off a miracle, and the New England Patriots can take care of their job in Miami, suddenly they're the AFC East champs. So you never know. Week 18 is a crazy time, and it's certainly going to make for very tough survivor picks. I'll say that much, because you just truly never know.
I love the constant segues here that Rob DeLuca continues to do, and he does it intentionally. I know that. Or did you do that on purpose?
No, that was definitely on purpose. I'm always gonna take credit for those.
Okay. All right, fine. So we'll give you full credit for that. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we continue with our picks in the Eastern Observer pool that presents, of course, us 4, in addition to 2 out of the 6 guys in the Essential Wrestling Podcast Pick'em Pool. John DeConnie and John Smith are here with us, of course. And let's take a look back at week number 17's results. And, of course, we got a chance to see the only losing pick was Tyler Adele. The kid makes no picks, but he makes 1 pick, and it's a loss. Great job, Essential Wrestling Podcast crew. And the rest of us, John DeConnie, of course, chose his Bears, and John Smith chose the Seattle Seahawks over the Detroit Lions. Well, now let's get into week number 18's picks. Let's go with Mike Szabo for starters. I know he always takes his sweet time taking the pick, but he's up now.
Speaking of, I totally forgot about my picks until like half an hour before the show. So I will be going with the Chiefs over the Broncos. I was tossing up between that and Indianapolis and all, and I don't want to leave nothing to chance. Although again, and never say never with anything. I like Mahomes. He has a good record against Denver, even though it's sort of been tight. They still have something to play for in terms of seeding in the last week. So. Taking the Chiefs over the Broncos this week.
It's really crazy to see also how the Denver Broncos, they've been 500 team or whatnot. They're dealing with so many injuries. I think they're also dealing with a COVID issue as well. So now all of a sudden they might just look like they might just get walked all over on this weekend. It's definitely a good pick. Guys, give me the Green Bay Packers, regardless of everyone being sat. Over the Detroit Lions. And I can guarantee you, just because I picked the Green Bay Packers, the Detroit Lions will win the amount that they lost by against Seattle. They will put up a 51 spot. Just watch, because I picked the Green Bay Packers. It's going to happen. Rob DeLuca.
Yeah, it's a tough week 18, so many toss-up games, you truly never know, and obviously you can't there's obviously better games I would have liked to pick from, but you can't repeat picks, so it made it that much harder. So I went with a game where there's something up for grabs, which usually means nobody's going to be sitting, voluntarily that is, and I am taking at home the Los Angeles Rams to clinch the NFC West Division and eliminate the San Francisco 49ers.
Wow. Okay, well, that's
Rob,
something else.
Have some problems if in the chat, if
I mean, that's gonna listen. All they got to do is just ram it.
Mike, I can't hear you down there 10-7. I'm all the way up there at 12-5.
Well, the best part is that, of course, the individual trophy, which, by the way, we're having for those that are just joining us for the first time, in our Survivor pool, we've got a last place trophy, but due to the supply issue, we will not have that in time. We'll probably get that in like March. But the individual winner trophy will be coming in, hopefully, good Lord willing, in the next couple of weeks. So that will either be presented to Ian Schraier or John DeConnie. That's going to be something cool. And then, of course, the division winner as well. So now we will save those two, Ian Schraier and John DeConnie, for last. Let's go to John Smith for your pick.
This isn't going to be anything crazy. I'm going with the Packers. I ended up saving too many good teams, which is why I'm 10-6 or 11-6. I could have chose the Chiefs. I could have chose the Colts, but I went with the Packers just because they still got to clinch that number one seed. So I figure there's no way they're gonna let the Lions take that away from them.
That is true, but also, just because I picked them, it's probably going to happen now. You now have just gotten the jinx. So now let's go to John DeConnie. JD, you are in a battle with Ian Schraier, the man right above you, for first place overall in his picks. JD, can you single-handedly defeat Ian, or is there a different team maybe that you might pick? Let's see.
Okay, I was from the very beginning. I was looking at all my options. Well, all my options, very slim at this point. And I was on Cincy all week until I heard that both Burrow and Mixon are going to be sitting. So last minute, I went with the New Orleans Saints, since that offense has been playing that defense has been playing very well, to beat the Atlanta Falcons, because I also believe that tight end Pitts will not be playing, and that's a team that doesn't seem to have anything to play for, and even when they do, they don't show up. So I'm going to say New Orleans gets the job done.
Well, Ian Schraier, is there going to be a different team that you select, or who is it going to be?
So first off, I want to wish John DeConnie the best of luck. Obviously, both of us, we've been up. And look, I've been playing the chalk all year as well, and it left my options very, very, very thin coming into Week 18. This was a week I really wasn't looking forward to. I was kind of hoping that, looking back in hindsight, I was hoping last week maybe I would have taken someone different and held on to New England for Week 18, but obviously I can't do that because I took New England last week over Jacksonville. The team I will tell you, the team I was initially leaning on because the New York Football Giants are just so goddamn bad was Washington. But Washington is also not playing for anything. So that's where I struggle a little bit, whether it's Taylor Heineke or maybe if they pull Robert Griffin III out of retirement at this point. I mean, I don't know exactly what that game means to Ron Rivera and company at this point, but I think Antonio Gibson's not playing. Is it DeLuca? Is it Jake from State Farm this week?
Yes, it sure is.
Please, no. I can't touch that game. So John DeConnie and I are actually going to have the same team. I'm also taking the New Orleans Saints over. So we're going to have to figure out a tiebreaker. I don't know how we're going to have to do that. But I for the life of me cannot take Washington just out of the sake of, because honestly, if you would have went to me first, I would have taken New Orleans. I don't know if that would have changed DeConnie's pick, because I really wouldn't feel comfortable with Cincinnati knowing that Burrow and Mixon are both sitting. So I'm trying to play with pride here and not just say, hey, if I lose, I lose. If I win, I win. But I'm going to go with the team that I feel the most comfortable with. I'm going to take the Saints.
Okay. Well, and I know Rob DeLuca is definitely not happy with that because he's trying to get this team trophy. And
team trophy I'm trying for here. And now we've got two games canceled here. So literally the others have to come in and make sure we gain 4 here just to tie it.
Well, what really grinds your gears, DeLuca, after that pick, huh?
Well, Ian's grinding my gears all season. What do you want from me?
Where's Quentin Nelson when you need him?
That's right.
Oh, my gosh.
Continuing the battle between Saquon Barkley and Quentin Nelson. Who should have gotten picked? Ian Schraier and Rob DeLuca continue their battle here tonight.
What would it matter? We'd still be terrible.
That's true, but at least we'd have a better offensive line.
Wait, there's people that think that Saquon was a good pick still?
Oh! DeLuca does. No, I don't think so. Okay. My pick was never Saquon Barkley. I've said that countless times. My pick was never Saquon Barkley.
It was probably Sam Darnold, though, and you would have been equally disappointed.
My original pick was Baker, but obviously he went off the board. So
winning.
Ian, are you winning? The offensive line would still be terrible. One guy doesn't change that.
A little better.
It doesn't change much.
Guys, let's keep on moving forward here. We're all old enough to know John Madden. He's been in our homes for much of our lives, all of our lives, and he passed away 2 days after his documentary, the documentary called All Madden. It was on Fox on Christmas Day. He died on the 27th of December. I believe it was natural causes. I'm hoping it was in his sleep. That's from what we've heard. I want to go around the dais here. I want to start off with you, Ian, and go the other way. Ian, what has John Madden meant to you throughout your entire life?
Well, I wasn't alive to watch John Madden coach the Raiders and win a couple of Super Bowls, but the way I will always remember John Madden is twofold. First, I mean, I grew up, there was no NFL Red Zone. There was Sunday Ticket, but there was no Red Zone. There was no, like, Scott Hansen, let's take it to the Octo Box. That didn't exist. And no Thursday Night Football, no Sunday Night Football even yet. Like, what you had, when you had the best game of the week, you had Summerall and Madden on your television. And granted, most of the time, that was in the NFC. So growing up in the 90s, that was the Giants, the Cowboys, the 49ers, and the Packers. So if one of those four teams was always going to be the premier game of the week on Fox, with the team of Summerall and Madden when they moved from CBS to Fox when the NFC moved. So that's number one. I mean, to me, there was never a better team to do it. They had the Super Bowl every year. It was just always their professionalism, Madden's comedy. They just worked so well together as such a cohesive unit. And before, I think I put on Twitter, I was like, before Buck and Aikman, before Michaels and Collinsworth, before Nance and Romo, Nance and Sims, like they were the gold standard. So that's part of it. And the other part of it is just, the video game player in me, just playing Madden since much of my formative years. I remember the first edition I ever had was John Madden Football 93. I remember there was no set, like the end zones were only just colors. There were no logos back then in those video games, but I'm forever haunted by Michael Vick in 2004 in college. I can't tell you the number of times I lost to the Falcons in that video game. But John Madden, just a tremendous human being, just a tremendous coach, a tremendous broadcaster, and just will sorely be missed.
Rob DeLuca, what does John Madden mean to you?
It's tough because I grew up on video games. That was my childhood. A lot of Madden. I'd buy Madden every year. Madden. From Madden like 2004 all the way up to Madden 10. It was, that right in the thick of my childhood right there. It was just my favorite one of my favorite games to play. And it was truly just, it's hard to come up with the right words and for us personally, Joey, as broadcasters, just another legend gone before us, and too soon. I mean, look, 85 years old, not exactly young, but still too soon, especially when he was perfectly fine just a couple days ago. It's not like he was sick or anything. It was just time ran out, and you gotta just appreciate the good times. You remember hearing him on TV, and golden voice. He's the voice of football. There, when you think football, you think John Madden. You don't think anybody else. That's it.
Well, and another broadcaster in here as well, Mike Szabo. Have you taken anything from John Madden? And you're obviously you're the baby in the room. What do you take away from John Madden and his football days and just his life in general?
Well, of course, I wasn't around, obviously, to see his big heyday and all. Obviously, the most recent memory you remember him was with Al Michaels on the Steelers-Cardinals Super Bowl. That's the most recent. Like Rob said, you think of football, you think of John Madden. I wasn't always a big Madden video game kid, but I mean, his presence on the game it's just immense. He really even brought in the casual fan as well, with how he was able to break down and analyze things, and he made football for everybody in terms of how they're able to understand it. And I think he really garnered the appreciation of a lot of people too. As a broadcaster, he really got into the nuances of football, where it was all about the stars back then, and certainly in the heyday of the '90s, and the Aikmans, Steve Youngs that he was broadcasting, and all the flair there when the quarterback play. But he focused a lot on the linemen and the nitty gritty and all, something that, now it enhanced all of our understanding of the game. And, it's a conversation up to now. The way he's affected the game, absolutely immense. You're more in the depth, but you celebrate an incredible life.
Yeah, amen to that. There's no doubt. And the Essential Wrestling Podcast, guys, JD, what do you think about with John Madden throughout your life?
Well, here's a sentence I don't think I've ever said before in my lifetime. I agree with NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell because in his official statement from the NFL, one of the lines that really hit home the most was John Madden is football. If John Facenda and Bob Shepard are the voice of God, Madden and Summerall is the sound of football. The guy lived a charmed life, from player to coach to broadcaster to game icon and advertising icon. I'm really glad, having watched the All Madden documentary and then having rewatched it after he passed, seeing him there, listening to everyone talk about him, because I'm just glad that he got to see it and be part of it. They didn't wait too long to pull the trigger on it. He got to be part of it. He got to see it because it really was a love letter to him, and he absolutely deserved it because John Madden is football.
Yeah, there's I don't know how to top that. John Smith, can you top that?
All I'll say is that when I was a kid, if there was two games on, you're watching the one that Madden's calling, and he made things more entertaining. And nowadays we're stuck with guys like Collinsworth and Buck and all these scrubs, and it makes you really appreciate what you had when you were younger. And another funny story: when I used to play Madden with my buddy Kyle all the time, and you used to hearing the same dribble over and over again, the same comments, because you played the game a million times.
Yep.
And Madden became just like one of our friends. It was just like whenever you would do something bad and Madden would have something to say about it, he'd be like, Madden, shut the hell up. We would just say it out loud. He became like one of the boys, even though he wasn't even there. Madden, shut up. I'm sick of it. You say that all the time.
Smith, ask Madden wasn't always the best option, though.
Fellas, 2006, John Madden was inducted into the Professional Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio, and I had the pleasure of being there, not because of him, but because my father is a diehard Dallas Cowboys fan, and he wanted to see Troy Aikman get inducted. And I did not really know. I was 11 years old at the time. My dad and we took a long road trip, and it was about, I think it was like 13, 14 hours. And, driving all the way out there, you get a chance to see, Harry Carson, of course, get inducted, John Madden get inducted, Reggie White get inducted. And, for me also, when, being there and seeing him on the stage, just, and mind you, just a few minutes before, he was on the field before the football game, the 2006 game against the Raiders and the Eagles, actually. And then that was when they started the Sunday Night Football package on NBC. So he was there with Al Michaels. And of course they were, reuniting the old Monday Night Football team on ABC. And that was all pretty cool. But his standing there, I'll never forget. It was like 95 degrees in August, and it was so hot. But I remember I stood there listening to every single word he said. I was probably getting heat exhaustion, but listening to every single word that man had to say there. It's just it was not only, as JD put it, almost like the voice of God, because you grow up playing these video games, you listen to Madden, and I'll never forget a friend that died about a year and a half ago. I didn't talk to him for like 10 years, but childhood friend, and him and I would always play Madden together all the way from, on, as in John Smith's background, and Nintendos, and even on PlayStation, on Xboxes, we'd just always play. And exactly what John Smith said, you'd always hear the same thing. And as the games got, more recent or newer, if you will, you'd always be hearing, a few more different things, but it was a lot of the same stuff. But, seeing him get inducted in Canton, Ohio was one of my greatest memories of him. And being at other, the VIP dinners and whatnot. And, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to have a picture with him because there were so many people that wanted to get a picture with him. But I'll be honest with you, I didn't care about Troy Aikman. I cared about only two guys, Reggie White and John Madden. That's who I cared about in that 2006 trip. But may he rest in peace. And, if you don't think of John Madden and football, or when you think of football, then there's something you have to educate yourselves when you think of the game of football. Guys, let's keep moving forward here. One last topic before the Essential Wrestling Podcast guys depart. There was something here that Ian Schraier actually pointed out, which I had no idea about, that this was going to happen. Jacksonville Jaguars fans are dressing up as clowns for the Week 18 contest against the Indianapolis Colts at TIAA Bank Field, in protest of owner Shad Khan not firing the general manager. This is something that has gone viral also on Twitter. There is a hashtag clown out, and it's spelled KHLOWN, KH obviously for Shad Khan, and the word out. Trevor Lawrence, he spoke about this to a few folks on ESPN, and he said, quote, "There's a lot of diehard Jaguars fans that this is very important to." The next quote is, quote, "Would I personally do it? No, I wouldn't do it, but fans feel how they feel. But it's hard after this year. I completely get the frustration," end quote. Ian Schraier, I want to start with you. You're the one that found this, and this was a Bleacher Report article that was put out there. And to see this happening, is it Shad Khan? Should he be selling the team? What's the deal? Because this team has not been any good since they were in the AFC Championship and got pummeled by the New England Patriots a few years ago.
Well, I don't. The problem with the Jacksonville Jaguars is that they're the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I think we said before the show is that when you can't fill up a quarter of your stadium and you don't even have national TV rights because you don't even fill up a certain percentage of your stadium for your games to be televised nationally, that's problem number one. I mean, the problem with the state of Florida when it comes to football is they care more about college than they do the pros, and it shows in Jacksonville and it shows in Miami. Aside from the fact those teams haven't been very good now for a while. But no, this doesn't surprise me. I mean, ownership, I don't know how to put it. I mean, well, a lot of this goes back also to the hiring of Urban Meyer, right? A lot of it goes to the sideshow that all became. And he leaves in the middle of his first year or gets fired, however you want to call it. So, yeah, they feel that their GM, who is responsible for bringing in this college savior, that he's going to be the next Jimmy Johnson. The fact that Urban Meyer has won so much at the college level, why shouldn't he win in the pros? And then all these stories get unveiled of the type of acts he's committing off the field, how he's acting towards his players. There's so many things we can't say on the show because those are words that he used, that Urban Meyer used with his own players. So there's got to be some accountability, and clearly from ownership and on the general manager side, there isn't. So, I mean, a lot of what's going on with the GM is obviously tied towards the future of Trevor Lawrence, but he's got to be under the scope. And listen, my kudos go out to the Jags fans for just trying to take a stand against him.
Yeah, did we lose Ian there?
No, he just stopped talking.
Okay.
Oh, I don't know if you guys lost me. I didn't even know that actually I dropped out there. I was wondering why I didn't hear you guys saying anything. But no, what I was saying was that give kudos to the Jaguars fans for standing up for what they believe in. I mean, unfortunately, because of the sideshow that Urban Meyer became and the way he acted towards his players, a lot of what this general manager, Trent Baalke, is tied to. He's tied towards the future of Trevor Lawrence, but he needs to be put under a microscope here, for what happened with Urban Meyer. He's his hiring. I mean, he's also Shad's hiring, but also the GM needs to take some fault here. And maybe he's not going to be terminated after all, but he's got to be under a very, very large scope, even in an environment where professional football is not held to a very high standard.
Listen, let me tell you something, and I want to go to John DeConi after this. When they made that hire for Trent Baalke, we remember, for those that know, okay, he was a hire by Jed York out in San Francisco. And who did Trent Baalke hire? Philadelphia Eagles coaching legend Chip Kelly. And look how well that went.
No, it was phenomenal. What do you mean?
It was beyond fantastic. They went a grand total, I think they won a grand total of maybe 5 games and lost, 25 or something like that. Under Trent Baalke. That is typical Jacksonville Jaguars, JD.
Yeah, and I don't know a whole lot about Shad Khan. I know, I've seen his face on TV more than a lot of owners, except, of course, maybe Jerry Jones. But, he kind of has this 70s George Steinbrenner feel to him where he wants to kind of be part of everything. And in this day and age, now, I'm not, obviously, as you referenced earlier, you get Jimmy Johnson, who comes up and just does a phenomenal job. And I'm not saying it's impossible to do that, but when you take a guy like Urban Meyer, who is a college lifer, and he's used to being a recruiter and a disciplinarian, and you bring him to the NFL, where now he's got to be more of an ego manager. He's dealing with millionaires. He's dealing with guys who may just tell him to go to hell in the middle of practice. I don't understand. Like when Saban, went to the Miami Dolphins, in recent or fairly recent memory, when the big time college coach is hired into the NFL, I never like it. You need a guy who maybe obviously came through the college ranks, but then spent some time as a coordinator, gets the feel for the NFL game, because they're 2 different games. So, yeah, I don't know where they're going next, but for their sake, I hope it's less of a splash than they tried with here with Urban Meyer, because I not to rewrite history or anything, but, I seemed doomed from the start for me.
You're continuously seeing all of this stuff go on. You saw it in Philadelphia with Chip Kelly. It worked for 1 year, and then eventually it went downhill. They continue to try it again with Urban Meyer, and it completely blew up in their face. John Smith, is there anything here that, can you justify this? I think you can if you're a Jacksonville Jaguars fan. This is great. Pure comedy.
Yeah, I wish I've thought of it for the past 8 years with these Jets. Ever since the Fire Idzik airplane went over our practice field, we should have been dressing up as clowns. Maybe they'd actually care about the team like we do. The problem is with these owners is they just want to make headlines, and that was a headline: is hiring Urban Meyer. Shad Khan, what does he make all of his money off of? Like oil or whatever? He's got all this Middle East money.
And soccer too.
Soccer too. And he doesn't, this is one of his toys. I own an NFL team. Same thing with Woody Johnson. He makes billions off of Johnson & Johnson, off baby powder and whatnot. What does he care if his shiny Jets toy is good or not? He just wants to have that in his portfolio. So that's the problem with NFL owners these days, is they have too wide of a portfolio and they don't care about, it's not grassroots. And that's one thing you could say about the Giants, is that they have that grassroots thing about them, but those people are getting a little too old to manage a team. They need to move on, I guess. But Jacksonville's about to get the first round pick for 2 years in a row, which has only been done by 2 other teams, the Browns and the creamsicle freaking Buccaneers. So they're going to be in some great company there.
Unbelievable stuff, fellas. It's really, really amazing to see what this Jacksonville team can do, and what their fans are capable of as well. And surprisingly, the best part is that they actually have fans. They actually have fans who are willing to do this. Unbelievable stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, John DeConnie and John Smith from the Essential Wrestling Podcast. Guys, thank you so much for coming on tonight. We really appreciate it, and good luck in Week 18 of our Survivor Picks.
Thanks, guys. Take care. Good being on with you.
Absolutely. Anytime, fellas. Continue on there. Good show on the Essential Wrestling Podcast. Make sure you guys tune in on Tuesday nights. We will get to all of that later on. So, fellas, let us continue moving on here from the Primetime Rundown. All good things. Fellas, well, let's move on here with some hockey, of course, because we only got a couple of minutes until our good friend Jake Zimmer from NCAA College Hoops Digest comes aboard with us. Rangers are buzzing. They are doing so well here this season so far. Yes, I see Mike Szabo's somewhat smile.
They both got smirks on their face, Joey.
They're fourth in penalty kill. They're seventh in power play. Fourth best in goals allowed. 17th, though, in goals for. They're 22-8-4. They're 10-3-2 at Madison Square Garden and 12-5-2 away from the corner of 34th and 7th. Guys, start with you, Ian Schraier. Your Rangers, they're buzzing. What do we see here?
Well, to go back to your point about their goals in terms of the number of goals they've scored and where they rank in the NHL, I don't know why it's taken 20 years for it to happen, or maybe even 30, for a coach to finally come in and fix the power play. For years, I remember, I forgot what game it was. I think it was pre the COVID pause, and Steve Valiquette was on during post game, and he had said, "Remember when the Rangers power play, you would say, can we just go back to 5-on-5? Do we have to run a power play for 2 minutes, and just not watch the Rangers produce anything with the extra man?" Because that's how pitiful for the better part. No, it's true, because that's how pitiful the Rangers were for the better part of 3 decades on the power play. This is a team that always ranked in the bottom 10 of the league in the power play. And I feel like DeLuca's got something to say about it.
Yeah. Jaromir Jagr and his 35 power play goals in 2007 can go screw himself.
There's just been no consistency to the Ranger power play unit for a very long time. But the last time I can remember them ever being ranked as a top 5 power play unit, I'd really have to go back and find out. But listen, I got to apologize to the Rangers, to be quite honest with you. And you guys were in the text chain when I went off after the Florida game, and before the COVID pause, you could see it just felt like the wheels were starting to come off a little bit. Like the game against Vegas, they were starting to play a lot of tight 1-goal games. They weren't scoring all too much, and they were coming against teams that the Rangers very much could see in the playoffs, or even if they had somehow advanced to a Stanley Cup final. To play Colorado and get thrashed twice, even with no Igor Shesterkin and Georgiev having the nice stretch that he did in during those couple of weeks, losing to Vegas at home after being up late in the third period. They were blowing a lot of third period leads was what was going on. And it happened again in Florida right out of the COVID pause. So part of me was like, okay, this is what I expected to happen. The team was overachieving for the better part of 3 months. It's great to see. I think they've got the right guy behind the bench to do it, but to come out and to put up performances as they did back-to-back games against the defending Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning, and to basically hold Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl without a point the other night against Edmonton and win that game 4-1. There's a lot to be said of what's going on right now at Madison Square Garden with the Rangers. I can't believe I'm saying it, but they have the most points of any team in the National Hockey League. I don't know how that's physically possible. We were here, 3 months ago, and I was sitting here arguing Colin Stevenson's point about how in the world are they making the playoffs. They've got way too many question marks. But look, Igor Shesterkin's playing like a Vezina Trophy winner. Adam Fox is playing like a Norris Trophy winner. Chris Kreider, I will never admit, is playing like an MVP. They were waiting for it, but this is a team. Listen,
save the best for last.
I did not buy into the grittiness. I did not buy into the whole we got to get guys in the bottom 6 that are going to hit people. But the thing is that you can make the argument. I don't think they're rolling 4 lines right now because that third line is just really, really struggling. At least when they're full health with Lafreniere, Hedl, and Gauthier. But who thought before he got hurt Sammy Blaze was going to be the player that he was for the Rangers for that short period of time. Who thought the fourth line for the Rangers would actually be pitching in offensively, and guys like Barclay Goodrow and Ryan Reeves would be having the impact that they're having?
And Kevin Rooney, of course.
And well, Kevin Rooney was on the team last year, but like these are guys that, and listen, Panarin's not putting the puck in the net so much. He's doing more distributing, and Zibanejad got off to that just incredibly slow start, but other guys are just picking up the slack. And I can't believe I'm saying it, but Gerard Gallant's doing a tremendous job, and he's got that Rangers team buying in. I'm still thoroughly impressed. I still can't believe it's happening.
And I can't believe also that Rangers legend Chris Kreider came out of your mouth. Mike Szabo.
I can't believe Ian acknowledged him, and he even started talking about Stanley Cup final or whatever.
Well, no. Only said
in the context of the great. I get what you're talking about.
Let's slow it down.
It's really shocking because I even said it in our text chain after the Florida game that you looked at the schedule and you're starting to see, all right, this is going to be the make or break stretch of the Rangers, and probably the way the last few years have been going. Yeah, it's gonna be the break part of the year, and once we get out of the stretch mid-January, we're like, it was a nice ride for 3 months, and now it's done. But they've come through this stretch, and I mean, listen, they still have some time. They still have a couple more games till we can fully assess this tough stretch where they're going through a bunch of solid or really good potential playoff teams. But, I mean, who would have thought they would be playing like this, taking 2 games in 2 days against Tampa Bay, of all people, and then to do what they did against Edmonton? I mean, this is fantastic that they may not even just, limp through this stretch, but may come through this tough stretch of games thriving. It's really shocking. The conversation for me, if I don't want them at the end of the season, I wouldn't want them to be number 1 in the NHL, but we have a long way for that discussion, because that's like a curse of death. But I think the biggest part is the power play, and even in the 2012 and 2014-15 teams that were really good, the power play was terrible on those teams. So this is like the missing piece, that the power play is so good and complements the fact that the 5-on-5 offense is just terrible and could use a little bit of boosting. But it's really been impressive to see what Gerard Gallant has come in to do, and what the Rangers, too, have done without Panarin this last week or so. Has also been impressive. Just impressive overall. I know we're celebrating only half a season thus far.
I'm not celebrating anything yet.
It's an impressive stretch so far, and what they're doing. Hope it continues.
I mean, I know when Ian's celebrating 20
goals
goals
right now. Look at what everything else is going on. The Knicks were supposed to be really good after what happened last year.
I know, Bing Bong, yeah.
The Giants and Jets are like, oh my God. The Nets are the Nets. I mean, whatever. The Kyrie stuff, and it's like, I mean, the Yankees and the Mets, you can't really talk about them, because it's the MLB lockout. So it's like the Islanders forgot who they were. The Devils are the Devils, and it's like the Rangers are the most exciting team in New York. That's what you got right now.
Yeah. Okay. All we know is that New York Rangers legend Chris Kreider has 20 goals on the season. Who would have thunk it? Not me.
As I saw on Twitter, the great Twitterverse says he will end the season with 45 goals, to which I automatically laughed my ass
off. He's on pace for 60. He's on pace for 60. Everyone knows
you guys won't ever get me to admit anything about Chris Kreider under oath.
He's going to get 35 goals this year. I will say that.
Well, I think the best part is I know what we have. What we have to chip in for Ian Schreier's birthday is a big giant Chris Kreider jersey. That's what we've got to do.
Absolutely.
That's
we'll get a little one for Emma too.
We'll
get a nice little kid's small jersey or whatever size she is in youth, and we'll get her a Kreider jersey.
More like toddler, but okay.
Bobblehead.
Don't worry, we'll get the photo opportunity too that we could share on the show when that day comes. As well.
Exactly.
The Christmas gift way down the line is the Chris Kreider bobblehead.
Look, you guys are more than welcome. If Chris Kreider ends up scoring 40 goals and the Rangers win the cup and Kreider
No,
was the tonight.
He lost it.
We already
He was trying to back himself into a corner there. That's what he was doing.
Well, the playoffs are a lock for the Rangers. That's already done and over with because of this run. The Rangers will not be missing the playoffs, and that's in big thanks to Igor Shesterkin and his hot playing right now, as well as Alexander Georgiev stepping up when Igor Shesterkin went down, and it's a stepping up that he needed for his own career. Because if the Rangers needed to rely on Keith Kincaid, they'd be down around where New Jersey is right about now. So it's about as simple as that. It's
that's
the
New Jersey Devils legend Keith Kincaid right there, Rob DeLuca.
So it's the goaltending that's done it for the Rangers, and it's these depth guys stepping up big that have really been a big part of the Rangers' success.
I almost want to say DeLuca tries with these segues, but it continues, and he just continues to really hit the nail on the head every single time.
Oh, this one was an accident then. This one was an accident.
That was not an accident. That was legitimate. I think you really did well with that in terms of stepping in there, because your New Jersey Devils are reeling from injuries right now. Dougie Hamilton out indefinitely with a broken jaw. Nico Hischier, of course, lower body. Well, DeLuca, I have to ask you this question and go right to you. Who steps in for the Devils? Who can make that? Who's that next man up?
Well, that's Jack. Everyone knows that's Jack Hughes. The Devils are currently in a 1-1 battle with the Columbus Blue Jackets right now in Newark late in the second period. Nico Hischier did return to the lineup tonight. It was all his x-rays came back negative. Could not be better news. So Nico Hischier only missing the one game against Boston, a game that the Devils did lose by a score of 5-3. Goaltender Mackenzie Blackwood is someone else who needs to step up right now. He is struggling beyond belief. Right now, he is the worst goaltender in the Metropolitan Division, and that is a problem that the Devils cannot afford to have if they want to stay competitive in this race right now. They're hanging in there. They're bleeding a little bit. They're 5 points behind the wild card race right now, but that's not that bad. That's kind of where Devils fans are hoping the Devils will be right around when the season ends. They want to be competitive. They want this team to be in games every night, and that's all they're asking for. We know the playoffs are next year's goal and beyond, but nonetheless, you got to look at guys like Jack Hughes. Dawson Mercer, another center, been stepping up greatly. Jesper Bratt is someone who is not talked about enough in the National Hockey League. He's been the Devils' most consistent player by far this season. He's been incredible. For a 6th-round draft pick, it's a steal. And the National Hockey League, everyone else needs to start realizing that. And I think that for the Devils, they're still in it. They're still in this. They're staying
100%.
competitive. It's a 1-1 hockey game. It's, you never know anymore. And I still don't expect playoffs for this team, but I do expect them to be playing important hockey in April, and that's what matters.
There was someone else that you didn't mention. Jonathan Bernier is out for the season as well. That is big.
Yeah, so that's the problem. Luckily, the Devils don't have too many back-to-backs right now, so it allows Mackenzie Blackwood at least a day's rest. They're riding him hard right now. I personally believe he could benefit from some rest and give John Gillies, the goaltender the Devils acquired from the St. Louis Blues a couple of weeks ago, give him a couple of starts here and there, of course. But because Mackenzie Blackwood's playing injured right now, he has a heel injury. He had heel surgery, and that heel surgery takes a lot of rest to fully recover. So constantly playing on it night after night, it's not gonna bode well. So eventually, I think that'll burn them, and we'll just have to see. But nonetheless, the Devils have been playing competitive, great hockey, especially since the return to hockey after the Christmas pause.
That is very, very true. And just because of time constraints, Ian and Mike, do not get disappointed that we're not talking about the Devils, because we already spoke about the Rangers and how good they're doing and legend Chris Kreider. So let's keep on moving forward here, okay? And let's keep on going. This is something else. Just before we get Jake Zimmer on board, we do see him backstage. Jake, we're going to welcome you in just 2 seconds. The big thing here is out in Edmonton. Mikko Koskinen, New York Islanders legend Mikko Koskinen, of course, responds to head coach Dave Tippett there was a game against the New York Rangers that was, let's just say, subpar for the most part. They lost 4-1 to the New York Rangers. And in their last 10 contests for the Oilers, they are 2-6-2, 18-14-2, and they've lost 2 straight. So what Dave Tippett did say after the loss against the Rangers, he said, quote, "I thought we did a lot of things well." And keep in mind, Connor McDavid was also in the COVID. I'm sorry.
Now is
the next day he was in the COVID protocol. I thought we did a lot of things well. Our goaltender wasn't very good, and we didn't find enough pucks at the net to get us back in the game. So normally you would think that Mikko Koskinen would just let it go, whatever, because Mikko Koskinen has a history of letting in terrible goals and really not being or living up to his massive contract that he signed with Peter Chiarelli a couple of years ago. So what did he say to Finnish, to the Finland media, to the Finnish media? Translated, quote, "It must also be said that in the 6 games I lost, the team has scored 7 goals. I can't score goals. It's not always up to the goalie alone to win or lose. The whole team needs to play better." It almost seems like this is a merry-go-round for this Edmonton Oilers team. They cannot get out of their own way. They've got so many salary cap problems that continue to haunt them, Mikko Koskinen being one as well, and they cannot get out of their own way with goalies either. We have not seen a good goalie from them. I don't even know for how long, too. Mike Smith was their goalie, is their goalie, and he's on the injured reserve. And now you have no choice but to turn to Mikko Koskinen. That's pretty much all we've got there, but it should be fun to see when Mike Smith does make his return, if Koskinen becomes some sort of trade bait, if they can hold some or retain some sort of salary. I don't see it happening at $4.5 million, but I don't think that'll be taken on. But again, because of time constraints, of course, ladies and gentlemen, a close friend of our brand, and of course, the good man himself up in Providence, Rhode Island, Jake Zimmer. Jake, thank you so much for coming on here. Jake is a part of the NCAA College Hoops Digest website, and also one of the founders of House Enterprise as well, and the Beers, Balls, and what's the other one? Podcast?
Hey, Beers, Business, and Balls.
Yeah,
you got to get the right order. Come on.
You see, that is, and again, it's a good thing it's pre-recorded too. So maybe we'll have to edit that out.
Hey, you can bail yourself out and just say the BBB podcast too.
You see, there you go. That is true. Jake Zimmer, everybody. Jake, thank you so much for coming on, man. How are things up north?
Everything's good. Sitting down, watching the second half of Bryant Wagner, who you and I previewed earlier this weekend. This has been a battle. Bryant's up by 2 as we speak. This is going to get interesting, Wagner. We've got, I think, at least Bryant in the bonus right now with 12 minutes left to go. So that's not where Wagner needs to be.
Only in the Northeast Conference things like this happens. Absolutely unbelievable. Well, the good thing we did bring that up, of course, with Brian and Wagner in our preview on your website, the College Hoops Digest, and we also got a chance to preview Providence and St. John's too. But Jake, that is why you're here also, because now we're going to do our little preview, and of course, there is some breaking news as well, where we got a chance to hear Ed Cooley on the radio a couple of hours ago say that AJ Reeves is dealing with a broken finger. He will not be going on Saturday. How big of a loss is that for this Providence Friars team, who come in ranked number 16 in the Associated Press poll?
Yeah, this was something that, this was debated pretty heavily before the game. It was AJ Reeves is going to play. He's not going to play. Something's keeping him out potentially, right? So naturally everyone's mind went to COVID a couple of nights ago against Marquette. They ended up playing without him. It was his non-shooting hand, a broken finger. Several other players in uniform didn't show up against Marquette on Tuesday night either. That was disgusting, to be quite honest with you. Every now and then, you'll have a major Big East team and go lay an egg. You saw it with Providence on Tuesday night, and then you saw it with Creighton the day after against Villanova. Put up a 41-point performance, right? I almost had to do a triple take of that final score, so that can't be right. But AJ Reeves, as he's been on the right track this year, mauled by inconsistency over his first couple of years in Friartown, was able to really start to level it off, right? Consistently a double-digit points per game contributor. They hurt without him this week. That's for sure. They figured out what the starting lineup should be. They figured out that the Providence Friars are a better team when AJ Reeves is doing better. So this, I've got lots of questions on how Ed Cooley's going to try to manage this, presumably for the next couple of games, maybe even weeks as well.
Yeah, that's really unbelievable that this injury just happens a couple of days after the Marquette disaster, and then of course just before this big St. John's game and their return to the Dunkin' Donuts Center. Mike Szabo, you cover St. John's for Storm the Paint, fan-sided, and also you're one of the sports directors at my alma mater at St. John's, WSJU St. John's Radio Network. What do you see in this on the St. John's side of things come Saturday?
What do you see? You see a team trying to get back from a long layoff. You saw them really going through the motions a little bit. I know they scored 89 points, but you saw them go through the motions for a little bit of that game, really coming back from an 18-day layoff. There was times through that first half where the offense were missing easy opportunities that maybe through normal rotation of games they don't miss as much. So the offense looked a little bit more inefficient. So you saw a little bit of issues there. You're really concerned about the defense. If you're St. John's, I mean, you've had this layoff where I guess certain stuff about the non-conference season, you let go a little bit. You haven't seen this team in a while. What's going to adjust or whatnot? And you still see the same issues where the defense hasn't really been great. The non-conference season was sort of underwhelming, or you had a lot more tight games than you would have expected for St. John's. A lot of that was, the team staying in it. The defense wasn't as hounding as it used to be. So I think you gave up 84 points yesterday against DePaul. Certainly a big concern going into a big game on the road against number 16 ranked Providence. That's going to be certainly a big concern. Of course, the focus is Julian Champagny and his huge night that he had. Interesting to see Dylan Adewusu, I think, becoming a really, really key secondary scorer for St. John's. I think that goes very underrated a lot of the times because of the struggles and all the other outside storylines. He's putting together a really solid season, honestly. I think he had another 17 points last night. Just
that's a career high, yeah. Just going off the box score there, I think it was 17 points he had, career high, as you said. He's putting together a pretty good season, and also with the inconsistent health of Posh Alexander, who's dealing with this calf injury. Looked like it was aggravating him a little bit last night. Yep.
Playing through all of these different things. Huge to see somebody else be able to step up and try and fill some more of the scoring load. So a lot to unpack for St. John's. It's going to be interesting to see how they respond on the road, because you really haven't seen them in a really true classic road game this year yet.
Yeah, that is very true. And now the fan aspect of it, and Rob DeLuca, because you are a St. John's fan. So now we've got the Providence writer side of things. We got the St. John's writer of things. And now we can even go to the fan side of things. Was not supposed to play because of COVID. He had cleared the protocol. There was also something, too, where I completely forgot, and I did not say that was something else, was that the new CDC guidelines as well. That was something else, the new 5-day rule, where you got to see Isaiah Naiwi run around with an N95 mask. I give that man so much credit, because even when I walk from, here to the toilet, I practically die. So, I find that nuts. DeLuca, Soriano had one of his best games yesterday. You as a fan, what did you see last night? And then what do you see that's going to happen that you predict maybe on Saturday?
I saw, from what I saw from St. John's last night, in the beginning, I saw a team that hadn't played for 18 days.
Yeah.
They had to find their rhythm. The only guy who seemed ready to play was Julian Champagny. And oh my Lord, did that man come to play some basketball last night.
On both sides of the floor, too.
Incredible. incredible double-double performance from Julian Champagny. That was some NBA level stuff from Champagny there. And, it makes you wonder, as a St. John's fan, he's only a junior, but we all know who else left when he was a junior. So it's all following the same unfortunate path that'll lead to St. John's despair. So nonetheless, it's as simple as this, that tomorrow is a completely different beast. DePaul had a good non-conference time, but then they got exposed playing conference games, and now St. John's takes the win by 5, and now they're gonna have to come into the Dunkin' Donuts Center, play a ranked Providence team that is shocking everybody. Nobody expected a 12-1 start from the Providence Friars, and this team is unbelievable, and I think that St. John's is going to get a serious wake-up call. I think it'll be a close game, but they're going to see they're going to see why the Big East has been such a unit this entire non-conference season so far, and it's going to be nuts. It's going to be I'm sure Rhode Island's going to be going crazy. I can't wait to hear the experiences that you guys have live from the arena. And I do think Providence wins the game, and I think it'll be relatively close. I'll be curious to see what the lines are, what the betting lines might be for them. So we will have to just wait and see.
Well, I know that, and Jake asked me a specific question that I actually tweeted at him yesterday, which was very funny. But I'm gonna bring that question up right after we get to Ian Schraier, because I need a good laugh from Rob DeLuca when we ask him that question specifically. But Ian Schraier, what you got to see yesterday with this St. John's team? Julian Champagny, 34 points, 3 blocks, 16 rebounds. He had two offensive boards too. Dylan Adewusu, 17 points, 8 assists. Both were career highs. Posh Alexander, 16 points, 4 assists. I got a chance to ask Dylan Adewusu yesterday what he was feeling, and all he said was, quote, "I was soaking it all in." That's literally all he said, and all he was doing was just smiling. And I had New York Post Zach Braziller next to me. I had Kevin Connolly in front of me and Jane Daly right around me, and they were all laughing because we were all so happy to see this kid really just put on an absolute show. Ian, what did you get to see yet from yesterday?
Well, I think it's what we have gotten to see now from Julian Champagny now for 2+ years. Is we know what he brings to the Red Storm on a nightly basis. But I'm going to throw a couple of questions here at our special guest, because Jake, you got to save me from these 3 St. John's non-realists. I call them the premier SJU optimists. I know where I stand on Mike Anderson and his tenure at St. John's, but because I gotta be honest and I gotta be a realist, and that's how I am. But Jake, if I could ask you a couple of questions, one about St. John's and one about Providence, from your knowledge.
I'll bring everyone back down to earth. Sure. I'll sprinkle some New England gusto into this New York metropolitan area show.
So to keep things more real and less, the Johnnies are going to lose by 2 to Providence tomorrow on Saturday. Again, I'm not trying to throw anything under the bus here, but I just want first question I want to ask about St. John's, and I'm going to jump over to Providence. And we saw the early start for St. John's and their non-conference schedule and the loss to Pitt specifically, and to come out against DePaul and pull out a 5-point win at Carnesecca on Wednesday. How important is it these next 2 games to go up against 2, nationally ranked, or UConn at one point was nationally ranked opponents, to go on the road to Providence, to go on the road to UConn? Because you really now, if you're St. John's and Mike Anderson, you really now have to start developing that tournament resume. And in a perfect world, to go 2-0 would be great. But do you think going 1-1, even though these 2 teams are expected to be perennial Big East players right now for a tournament championship come March, is 1-1 the absolute minimum here for St. John's over the next 5 days?
Ian, this is such an interesting scenario, because you want to put all your thought into the records and the rankings at this point. I think for St. John's, unless they really start to go on a hot streak, I'm not quite sure about an at-large bid at this point. You know, we're far out from having to have that conversation.
I can't
Right
believe those
now,
words just
it's
came out of your
very-
mouth, Jake.
Well,
Good Lord.
I'm just trying to be unbiased. I'm trying to feed into your St. John's optimism, right?
Don't do it. Don't do it, Jake. Don't
I
do
know
it.
I can't. Jeez, Joe, you're killing me. My perspective about St. John's here, though, very simply put, it's just punch back at this point, right? At this point, you have to be looking to see what kind of fight this group has. Can you go up against one of the big East teams, right? Like UConn, Providence, both picked. Providence, I should say, was ranked, I think, 7th in the Big East preseason poll. UConn up at the top, but those, without question, I think if you had surveyed pundits, fans, coaches, those are in the top 5 Big East programs right now. St. John's is not. So what do they have in their arsenal? How's their left jab look? You know, when do they come with the knockout punch, right? We need to see what this St. John's team has against those big groups. That's simple. We saw it against Indiana to start the year off. Went toe-to-toe with a national power of a program in the Indiana Hoosiers, right? I want to see what it's like for them in conference play. And honestly, I think that everything leading to this is a back-to-back matchup with Seton Hall in a couple weeks, right? Yeah. Let's see what kind of punches they can throw against these big teams, because God only knows they're going to have the same game plan against a real tough Pirates team too.
We can
who
always
will
say,
be probably at full health at that point as well.
Right.
They'll have Tyrese Martin back. They'll have or Tyrese Samuel, I should say. Tyrese Martin, wrong program. They'll have Ike Obiagu off the bench. You know, those are 6'10" and 7'2" guys, right? St. John's might be missing something. They don't have a 7'2" guy they can rely on here. So,
no, there's definitely a lot of questions on the interior for St. John's as well. Going over to the Providence side, Jake, I remember when we had you on last year, we spoke a lot about how the Friars were underwhelming. And that there was just a very disappointing season for Ed Cooley and company. To see the impressive start that they've gotten out to and have established themselves just as a contender, and has already, even if they floundered in Big East play or stayed 500 the rest of the way, they're an at-large tournament team. Do you feel even after the loss to Marquette, is this early impressive start for Providence a flash in the pan, or is this something to look forward to come tournament time?
Well, I think that was the initial reaction, the flash in the pan, right? The big questions, Ian, in the offseason were, how did Ed Cooley make this team better? How do you make up David Duke's scoring as he goes off to the NBA? Is Nate Watson going to return fully healthy? Is he going to be the center that everyone finally promises that he'll be? And the answer to all those questions have been positive. I don't think any Friar beat reporter or fan expected all of those to check the boxes off, right? I think it was, maybe Watson's not going to be back. Maybe Al Durham's just not going to work in Providence. They all work. Al Durham is probably one of, I'd say, the highest quality transfer that Providence has had in quite a few years. I'll leave it at that. This is a very veteran group, Ian. And this is a group that plays unselfishly. They pass the ball willingly. This is a very gritty group, and quite honestly, it just fits Ed Cooley's mold for the first time in many years. It's probably since 2017 or 2018, and I even think back to 2015-16 season with Chris Dunn, Ben Bentel, Kyron Cartwright, and then down the road, Rodney Bullock, guys like that. There haven't been guys like that, to be honest with you. And now finally, this is going to go down as a team in Providence basketball history where Nate Watson walks into that building and people bow down to him. Same with Al Durham. Even, 15 games in, people are already singing Al Durham's praises. So some good stuff in Providence. I think it can be sustainable.
Go ahead, Mike.
He's probably the newcomer of the Big East so far. You look at through the season and everybody else, all the other transfers, he's probably the newcomer of the year thus far.
We got a chance to see a couple of days ago also, which we brought up with Jake when we were over on his side of things. Noah Horkler is someone else, too, that is someone that, is a force that has to be reckoned with. And this St. John's team, if they do not have a game plan for him, I would not be surprised to see another 4 for 6 shooting percentage in the first half from distance for this guy, this Florida transfer. Amazing stuff from him. Jake, I have to bring up now to my compadres here about a question that you asked me, and I look like probably the biggest fool after I said no. You had asked me, quote, is the St. John's program nothing without Julian Champagnie? And I said no. I want to hear Rob DeLuca and his argument. Am I insane or am I on the right track? Is this St. John's program nothing without Champagnie?
It's hard to counter an argument against it after what we saw at Madison Square Garden. Because what we saw at Madison Square Garden was a bunch of lost puppies. And it was ugly. It was terrible. It was infuriating. It was just about every word you can think of that you can say on the air. So it's hard to say. And then obviously he comes back 24 days later. He comes back and drops 34 points. I don't know what much more you could say. Yeah, this team needs him desperately every single game.
I don't know. All I can tell you, though, is that, again, Joel Soriano, regardless of the 4 points that he posted, he still had 9 boards and 2 for 5 from the field as well. Listen, defensively, he did his job. He also had 3 blocks as well yesterday. Aaron Wheeler did his job as well, 2 for 5 in 30 minutes of play, 3 boards, 5 points, 1 steal, 1 block as well. Again, towards the second half, the defense was really was really showing out. But, you know, when you see Javon Freeman Liberty, the leading scorer in the Big East, 24.7 boards. He only had 2 turnovers and a 54% clip from the floor in the second half. This DePaul team, it was really good to see them actually fight. But I expect Providence, the number 16 team in the land, to be a completely different animal. Guys, I want to end it here and get your predictions for the game against Providence St. John's on Saturday. Ian Schraier, let's start with you. Your scoring prediction is?
I don't know about official score, but I'm not. Listen, I'm not going to be on the DeLuca boat here and say the game's going to be close. But I'll stay within single digits. I'll say Providence.
That's what I'm saying. Respectable.
Listen, I'm not dealing with your SJU optimism. Providence by 8.
Is that not close? Is that not respectable?
I'm saying maybe the game will be double digits, and then maybe Cooley will bring out the backups, and they'll get a couple of points in garbage time. Providence by 8.
Andrew Font's coming in with his brother Luke to rain buckets.
That's my
Rob DeLuca.
The game's going to be all too close. Providence by 8. No.
Yeah. Look, I think this St. John's team's just not. They need to be 100% healthy, and they're not going to be there. So it's. I mean, look, Providence has issues of their own. Let's not be hasty here. So that's something to think about. Is it enough? I don't think so. Providence by 7.
Mike Szabo, what do you got? And you will be going up there this weekend, which really bugs me. But what do you got?
Here it comes. By 4, baby. Here we go.
This will be St. John's second road game of the year, really, after you saw Indiana. I think it'll be a team that maybe you'll see makes a run at some point. You'll see a couple basket, makes it close. But I say 76-66 Providence. I think they'll wind up pulling away. This is a team too with Providence. They absolutely laid an egg against Marquette. I mean, that was ugly, and you know that will be on the entire team's mind coming back home. After a really bad game, they're going to have a little bit of something to prove there and a little bit of frustration to extol after a bad performance against Butler. But I guess you can be afforded a bad day every now and then. So I think that'll bump them up to a win over St. John's.
Jake Zimmer, close us out here.
Did I say I'm struggling to remember what I even predicted a couple days ago? And if this is different, the receipts are there. Please feel free to grill me if you want to comb through them. But I think it was 81-67. I'll just flip the last meeting around. Basically, I say Providence gets out to an early jump. They make the right knockout punches, and we'll set the Andrew Fonts plus Luke Fonts over-under point total at 3.5. I offer no further speculation. I will not wager a side of that.
Jake, we just ask you take care of our guy up there up at the dunk while he's witnessing that, though.
He won't be there.
I won't even be there. So
he won't be there. Gentlemen, Jake Zimmer is going to be joining us for our nightly or our weekly kudos here this time. So with all, let's get the drum roll here, and we are going to end with Jake on this. So Ian Schraier, your kudos to end us off here on episode number 77.
So until I was watching the Ranger game a few nights ago, I was really struggling to come up with some kudos. But my kudos go out to Seattle Kraken fan Nadia Popovici, who what an outstanding story. And the only reason I know of it is from at an intermission of the Ranger game against the Oilers the other night. And to find out this story of what happened at the Kraken's first ever home game against the Vancouver Canucks, and being the medical student that she is, to see that there was a mole on the equipment manager for the Canucks, Brian Hamilton, and basically in a text message put the phone up against the glass and said, get that checked out because that could be a cancerous mole, and they found it to be a malignant tumor, and it in essence saved the man's life. And it just goes to show during this whirlwind of a 2 years we've been having, there's just so much good out there in the world, and and the Canucks doing such a great job giving her $10,000 towards her medical school bills. I just love everything about hockey and love everything about the world we live in, because there's just so much good out there. So that, yes, my kudos go to her.
Rob DeLuca, your kudos tonight is to whom?
It's to the great Lou Carnesecca. Happy birthday, Coach. You know, everything you've done for that beautiful school. There's not enough words to describe it. You know, it's just 97 years young, beautiful thing. Keep going strong, my man. Happy birthday.
Mike Szabo.
Thanks, Rob, for stealing that one. I figured he would, but I know he went after that one. But mine, I'll take it a little bit further out, and we'll go into the soccer realm, and kudos to Ricardo Pepi and that huge record move that we saw a U.S. star breaking the $20 million barrier mark for a transfer move headed over to Germany. Kudos for him and his great start to his career. And now go over to a really good league in the Bundesliga, and good luck to him over there.
Before we get to Jake, my kudos goes to Jumbo Joe Thornton. 1,700 games played tonight. Absolutely amazing. Boston, San Jose, Toronto, as well as the Florida Panthers. Amazing stuff. Jake Zimmer, let's take it away.
Kudos goes to Phil Martelli Jr. He is the associate head coach at Bryant. This will be his second game tonight. It's currently 68-68, so I can't congratulate him on a 2-0 career as a head coach, but came off the bench. Jared Grasso, the head coach, has COVID, so I guess we'll do a sub kudos to Jared Grasso. Hope he gets better. Last I heard from him, texted him, he's doing fine. He just wants to keep it away from his kids and his wife, understandably so. So, Phil Martelli Jr. grew up in a basketball family. How do you follow in the footsteps of Phil Martelli Sr.? 425 and 303 as a head coach of St. Joseph's from 1995 to 2019, and now he's Juwan Howard's number 2 at Michigan. So a lot of basketball in that family, a lot of accomplishments to follow up, and what a guy. He's going to have a head coaching job one of these days. So kudos to him.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. But, ladies and gentlemen, our show has officially concluded here. And, of course, Jake, we cannot thank you enough for coming on here, but stick around with us just as we do get our credits underway. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, our podcast can be viewed and listened to at the following platforms: Odyssey, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Play, as well as Apple Podcasts. And of course, if you'd like to view all of our beautiful faces, please search the Eastern Observer on YouTube. Also, please keep in mind about our other show, the Essential Wrestling Podcast, which is presented by ProWrestlingPickup.com, which will air on Tuesday, January 11th, starting at 5 p.m. That can be seen right here on the Eastern Observer. Episode number 87 will come your way with Al Carl, Ryan Joy, John DeConnie, John Smith, Gary Mehefe. All of those guys will be taking you through the world of wrestling. Of course, our partnership with the New York Professional Scouts Association and the Eastern Observer continues with the episode number 83 of the Scouts Minute. We will be featuring Randy Gumpert, who years ago was a New York Yankee scout and worked at the Major League Scouting Bureau. That will come your way January 8th on Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time right here on the... I'm so happy to just ring in the new year with Rob DeLuca going like this multiple times. It's fantastic to see. All good things, DeLuca. We love you. Happy New Year to all of you out there. And Jake, again, thank you so much for coming on tonight, man.
Thanks, gentlemen. Always a pleasure.
Guys, ladies and gentlemen, for Ian Schraier, Rob DeLuca, Mike Zabo, Jake Zimmer, I'm Joey Jarzynka. For all of us here at the Primetime Rundown, the Eastern Observer, and the Blackjack Media Group,